we don't have an economic reliance on Mexico like Russia has on Ukraine. If you pull up a map,
we have tons of factories and shit in Mexico, don't we?
Are you talking about the supply chain to the Black Sea? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. No. So I mean, are there commercial companies that have a factory in Mexico? Yes, and they also have a factory in Tennessee and in Vietnam and in whoever, they're diversified. They have 5 of them in China.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that I don't think it's realistic in any way to think that America is going to invade Mexico.
No.
There's for the American.
Trump wanted to.
For the American military to invade a neighboring country, it's not our strategy. It's not how we operate, especially not when we can just write a big check and have something happen much faster than if we were to mobilize M1 Abrams.
Do the cartels benefit us at all?
Here's the issue that we're having now with legitimate United States businesses that are trying to move product to or get product from Mexico, because there's some military hardware, there's different computer systems that need to get in and out. The problem they're having is the cartels control those paths, those supply chains. So really, no, not only are they moving drugs that are killing our kids and killing a lot of people, but they're also not allowing without huge markups in order for us legitimate logistics companies to get in there with product or come out with it. That's the big issue. Everything from cars. I mean, I think Mercedes has a huge plant in Mexico City. So, but they can't move the product without paying an upcharge. And it's a significant upcharge. Or it's, what I worry about is just look the other way what's coming in with these, 50 S-classes.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So I think that's going a little bit far, stretching a little bit far, but it's possible. So I think that's kind of the issues that we're having there on the side of crime and on the side of how the cartels control every single thing. And then moving people through is that's an organized scheme, what you're seeing at the borders.
What was your boy saying, Danny? What was I forget the guy's name. You had a man and it was like,
Luis Chaparro?
Yeah, Luis. What was he saying about the CIA with the cartels?
He was saying that he's saying that unequivocally the CIA works with the cartels.
I don't know one way or the other.
There was one guy, and in particular, there was a documentary made about him. He was CIA and DEA, I believe, and he was actually murdered by a CIA agent in a cartel drug house, like in one of the cartel-owned houses. And this has been verified, and there's like documentaries about it and stuff like this. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy right now. Fuck. Anyways, it was in the DEA office in Mexico City, I believe. The DEA agent was tortured.
Kiki. Yeah.
Yes. Kiki Rodriguez.
I was gonna say Vandaway. That was a fucking GM
his name.
Of the Nuggets.
Kiki Rodriguez. Yeah, Kiki was the DEA guy who got murdered, and eventually they captured some of the cartel guys, and the cartel guys basically unveiled who the guy was who actually murdered Kiki, and it wasn't a CIA agent who lives in Florida right now. I can't remember his name.
You gonna have him in?
No, I don't think he'll answer my emails.
Do you have a name?
Did you do it?
It's on the internet if you could find it.
If
you could find who is the CIA agent who murdered Kiki Rodriguez.
Oh, when he gets drowned in Puerto Rico, we'll know fucking Andy did it.
Look for his tweets.
That's it.
It's not intimate. Drowning is not intimate.
So why wouldn't the United States invade Mexico if China has its claws so deep in Mexico and it's hurting the United States so much? Like if they're so invested in Mexico and working alongside the cartels, why wouldn't we just overtly go in there?
Because there's two types of wars. One is a profitable war. One is a not profitable war, right? And those two types of war are called interstate war and intrastate war. Interstate war is sovereign nation against sovereign nation. It's extremely expensive. It is not economically sustainable. It's when one country invades another country. It's what Russia doing. It's what Russia is doing to Ukraine right now. That is not a profitable war for either side. Intrastate war is a civil war. In a civil war, it's extremely profitable for anybody participating in the civil war from outside of the country. Why did we get involved in Syria? Why did we get involved in Yemen? Why did we get involved in Libya? Why are we involved in Ukraine? It's extremely profitable to be the person who's sending humanitarian aid, building influence, soft power, hard power, sending weapons systems, whatever it might be. It's extremely profitable to be part of an intrastate war, right? So when the United States watches what China's doing around the world in third world countries through the Belt and Road Initiative, through whatever policies China's executing to build infrastructure and everything else, that is something that the United States would prefer to continue to combat economically, because once they commit troops on the ground, you're not only paying the cost in terms of dollars and cents, but the cost in terms of lives, the cost in terms of public response. It's nasty. 9/11, if anybody alive during 9/11, America was hard up and ready to rock and roll and send boots on the ground for about 5 years. And then after that, the death toll and the lack of results, even though it wasn't anywhere close to what it was in Vietnam, it turned the appetite of the American people against the...
Yeah, because they started a bad war we didn't need. That, like Afghanistan, you had to go to.
Listen, what you are spouting right now is what you have seen since 9/11. The day that 9/11 happened, people wanted blood immediately.
Oh, no.
yeah.
No. So just to be clear, I always say this, absolutely had to go to Afghanistan. Afghanistan was 1,000% should have been there.
October
all
701, yeah. I mean,
all the way.
That was a mission.
I'm
that
talking
needed to be
about
Iraq.
when they took their eye off the ball and they went to Iraq, where he's got WMDs. No, he didn't. Dick Cheney walked in there and said, "Mr. President, what if there was a 1% chance Saddam had WMD, blew someone up, and it was on your ass?" And he's like, "God damn it, Dick, we're going in." And he wanted to go in to finish his dad's fucking job. And so then we get caught up in this whole war, and that's where the tide turned. And that's why also then, and this is a separate conversation, but 20 years later, we have the fuck up with Afghanistan because the resources were pulled out of there. Like, I see the difference between the two, and I look at this and I go, how can you not say that Iraq is a product of a profitable war, as you say, which I understand exactly why you're saying that. There's people out there who will just hear that word and immediately go to like military industrial complex.
Right.
When they're thinking about Iraq, though, they're right about that.
Okay. So this is Kiki.
This is Kiki. I can't read that. Can you read that, Julian?
Kiki Salazar was an American intelligence officer for the United States DEA in February 1985. Kiki Camarena Salazar. Camarena was kidnapped by drug traffickers hired by Mexican politicians in Guadalajara. And so
Whoa. Oh, you're zooming in. I got
you.
you.
There we
You're
go.
making
Three
it legend.
leaders of the Guadalajara drug cartel were eventually convicted in Mexico for Camarena's murder. The U.S. investigation into Camarena's murder led to 10 more trials in Los Angeles for other Mexican nationals involved in the crime. One of them, I forget his fucking name, but we got the guy. They caught him in like the hills of Mexico last year.
Yeah, and
So
he's
now
free again.
Is he free again?
Yeah,
Here it
I
is.
believe he's
He
free
was
again.
again captured in July of 22.
Yeah, Caro Quintero.
Yep.
And then he was
Quintero.
again captured. Okay, so we got him again.
Yeah, and he was being they did like a press event with him, and he was just kind of like laughing and like mocking everybody, like, "Ha, fuck you! I'll be out of here in 3 months."
Yeah.
So where's the CIA connection?
So, yeah,
is there
so
a control F that we can find?
Find the CIA guy. You gotta
Except the
Google
CIA
who
secret
is
control.
the CIA officer.
Except in Google Chrome. Actually, I think it is still control F in Google Chrome.
What were we just talking about?
I don't remember.
I think we were just talking about conspiracies and how
Oh,
hard
yeah.
it is to prove a conspiracy, right? So essentially, CIA has an entire division focused on countering narcotics, but we counter narcotics that affect American national security priorities. There's all sorts of narcotics out there that don't have any impact on U.S. national security. If they have some other intelligence value, then it basically goes to a panel of people who decide, according to the Washington Post test, whether or not we should get involved in this other type of operation, right? Collecting intelligence is not the same thing as stopping criminal activity. Oftentimes, collecting intelligence means accepting or even enabling criminal activity.
Right.
Two different things. Now, in a post 9/11 world, would we run that by FBI? Yeah, we'd be like, hey, we're thinking about doing something with or against or in conjunction with, or that may potentially enable this cartel to operate in a certain way. FBI, do we have your blessing, right? NSA, can we collect and make sure this is going to work, right? Maybe they even go and they ask the intelligence committee at the House.
What about private intelligence? Do they
Private
follow
intelligence
that?
is completely different,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I thought.
It's totally private intelligence does whatever it takes to make the paycheck at the end of the day. And that's what makes it so useful. It can move faster. It can move more nimbly. It can absorb risk without ever needing to have, like, the president have plausible deniability. It's not plausible. He actually has full-on deniability.
Well, this one definitely does.
So yeah, but every time I hear anybody out there be like, "Oh yeah, a verified like CIA officer did this," it's really hard to verify a CIA officer. And there are so many people out there who claim to be CIA when they're not. They were pulled onto a mission that CIA was part of. Maybe they participated in some private intel effort that was unknowingly or knowingly like funded by some third party that may have been affiliated with CIA. Like people throw that term around a lot.
Yeah, people
really
throw
have
it
no
at you
idea.
all the time. They try to say like, oh, that Bustamante guy,
Yeah.
not a spy at all.
Yeah, it's amazing. Or that you've got the people throwing that at me and the people throwing that I'm still actively a spy.
Yes.
Well, we know
and
you
I'm
are,
on
but that's okay.
podcasts
Right.
trying to recruit more spies.
And it's not recruiting. You're putting a narrative out. You know,
if the
you're
truth,
a great PR man.
the truth is a narrative.
Yeah. The truth. Oh boy, now we're playing with the word truth. Oh my God.
Depends on
Anyways, I don't want to spend a whole fucking hour trying to find this guy's name, but there's a documentary about this called The Last Narc. And towards the end of The Last Narc, they actually reveal who the CIA agent was. I think his last name was Rodriguez, and he lives in Miami right now.
Okay.
And he's retired CIA.
Wait, Jose Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah, Jose
You know
Rodriguez.
Jose, Uncle
Jose.
Jose.
He was the chief of.
I don't know
He
why.
was the
I
head
find
of the
it.
torture. That's how he talks. He's like, we didn't torture anyone. We just made them feel pain. It's like, okay,
Torture.
all right, cool.
Like every conspiracy theory is just intrinsically tied to the CIA.
Correct.
It is insane.
And you did find one source successfully that talked about this, and it's Fox News.
Yeah.
Let's go. Where's the Jerusalem Post?
Oh yeah. Agree with you there, brother. I mean, but I actually like what you say about that a lot, and people will give you shit for it, but it's a really important point you've made on multiple podcasts where I think he made it on yours originally at first. I could be wrong about that because you've been on so many fucking podcasts now.
Yeah.
But thanks to you guys,
I see a new
this guy
podcast
over
with Andy
here.
Bustamante every single week. I was telling Julian the other day. It's wild, man.
I'm recording 2 in London next week.
Really?
London.
Oh.
Ooh,
Yeah.
tally ho. Anyway,
Yeah.
but you've said like with a conspiracy, it's like people, they start with a level of truth, like a kernel of truth, and then they carry it all the way and they want it to be true.
Correct.
And I agree completely because all the time, you know, we can joke about guy getting drowned in the Puerto Rican pools or whatever, but all the time I'm constantly trying to pull things back and be like, well, what's really the evidence for this kind of thing? And people are like, oh, you're a fucking CIA podcast, man. Fuck off. I understand where they could be coming from, though, when someone like you, like in the CIA or you in the FBI, sits there and says, oh, you need to consider that it's just a kernel of truth at the top and eventually gets dragged out, because that means, therefore, that, yes, there are real conspiracies, but it's a very small percentage of them. So then every time a new conspiracy is faced at the table and you're saying, could this be true? You can play oh, well, this is part of the big percentage where it's not. And so every time in the law of like populations, large numbers, you're essentially getting to deny it by the same way Dick Cheney did the 1% doctrine, because it's like, don't focus on the fact that it's only 1%. Focus on the fact that it could be 1%. You're doing the opposite end and saying, no, it's always the 99. You know what I mean?
So professionals in our field, we play probabilities, right? And then sometimes probabilities are high enough that they dictate action. Sometimes probabilities are low enough that they dictate patience, right? The anatomy of a conspiracy, exactly what you're talking about, right? Every conspiracy starts with a fact. Something happens. Then, immediately following that fact, we're faced with something that's not known, right? Whether it's what happened with FTX or whether it's what happened with this dude in the Bahamas. We're faced with something that's not known. Once you're faced with something that's not known, the natural human tendency, not among dumbasses, but among smart people, right? Conspiracy theorists are, for the most part, pretty smart people. Right? The next natural reaction when you're facing unknown information is skepticism. Skepticism. You're asking yourself, why don't I know this? Why doesn't somebody know this? Shouldn't somebody know this? Right? Those are the first 3 steps in the birth of a conspiracy. And then it's human nature that when you become skeptical, then you start to write a story in your head that erases the skepticism. You connect the dots on your own with a piece missing in between.
There you go, the missing link.
And then it just starts to cycle.
That's perfect.
And
that's well explained.
And because you're coming up with a logical, sound explanation at the end, all the other smart people and all the dumbasses out there, they can connect your story very quickly. So that's how conspiracies, boom, take off like wildflower.
And the agency is a nice missing link for a lot of stories. Well, we can never really know about it, but
Mhm.
Those guys know
Right.
exactly what happened. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it provides that missing link. It provides that bridge for skepticism to rid yourself of that and write your story.